I bloody love the X-Men. They were the series I read the most growing up. Look at all those muscles. And I was so pumped for the movies when they came out. I remember the first images of Hugh as Wolverine with his claws out. I loved it. And while X2 for me is the best of the X films, the majority have been trash. And a large part is the nerfing of the characters. One character who is mega important in the comics is the leader of the bloody team, most of the time. Cyclops, aka Mr. Scott Summers, with his eye beams. So let's compare the comics to the movies. And don't forget to like this video if you like the video. And if you really like it, subscribe. So straight off the bat, something that the later movies didn't quite get right every time is that his beam is a concussive blast. It's not heat, Dad, or a laser, or anything that will burn through something. Despite the inconsistencies throughout the comic run, I know people say, oh look, concussive blasts create friction and that causes flames, but that's so obviously not what is happening in some of these movies. The source of the powers recently got found out to be a dimension of pure concussive force that he channels through his eyes, as visited by America Chavez recently. I love the backstory of Cyclops and why he can't control his powers. He was in a plane with his family that got set on fire. The parachute he was in with his brother Havoc set on fire as well, so he apparently used his mutant power for the first time to slow them down, which I was sure happened but couldn't find the images of. And a bonk to the head meant that he couldn't control them, and that's why they always just want to be blasting. This was retcon later on, but I like it. It's a nice touch, and it's why he needs the dorky visor. Strike a pose. The visor, which is apparently controlled by a thumb switch, but I've never seen that mentioned again. So obviously his power is what most people know about him, and it's been nerfed a bit in the movies. When Scott goes full blast in the comics, it is big. Like when he's smashing it into Bishop to charging up, the power of that blast registered by Tony Stark is 2 gigawatts. He can do things like obliterate a sentinel on the lawn of the X-Mansion, which impresses Wolverine. Such good artwork in that. We see him punch through mountains, cause Worldbreaker Hulk to stagger, even though he shook it off. That is a big deal, see last episode. He unleashes on a Krakoa clone thing and pulverizes half of it. Again, great art in that one. And then there's also a load of hyperbole about what he could do with the blasts. Rip a planet in half, pulverize adamantium, level skyscrapers. We get it, it's powerful. It apparently is how Wolvie loses a hand in the Age of Apocalypse. You don't see it in the comic, but you can see it in this weird looking trading card. That hair in Age of Apocalypse though, Scott, I know it's to cover the missing eye, but does it have to be so long and flowing? Strike a pose. He can also demonstrate pretty good accuracy and control over the beams, such as when he needs to torture someone for information but doesn't want to use his hands. So the eye beams are great, but over time in the X-Men, he's become this leader of the team that is a tactical genius as well as being a decent fighter, using dinosaurs to train for crying out loud, as well as going toe-to-toe with Wolverine on more than one occasion. So there's plenty of reasons why he's the leader of the X-Men. He's got a hell of a powerful force in him, as well as Batman-esque tactics and fighting skills. He's an absolute legend in the Astonishing X-Men run, with this elaborate plan that you see happen twice, once with words, once with a telepathic connection, and ends with this epic display of power in what is perhaps one of my favourite runs of all time. Yes, I said it. The man also has a load of baggage that we're not going to go into here, involving Mr. Sinister, clones of his wife, his baby, we'll talk about that later on, the works, all of which adds quite a few layers to this character. So in the movie, he's just such a disappointment. All the way back in the first X-Men with Scott Marsden, what a handsome bloke, he has to literally touch his visor up to use them. That is not practical. And while the blast is kind of like an explosion at the start, they do seem more concussive in this first one. And while when his glasses get pulled off by Toad, who will feature in another video, the uncontrolled blast is big, but it's basically standard practice for comic Cyclops. Great at getting frisbees though.
Taught them to control their powers, and in time...
The random kid, Cyclops in Wolverine Origins, also had a powerful blast, but it was burning stuff. Wrong. You already got it right in the first ones, why change it? We never really get to see the true power of those blasts in the original movies, mainly as they focus more and more on Wolverine. So that in the first run, he was bloody killed at the start of the third movie. Outrageous. In the reboot with Ty Sheridan, again, they're powerful, but it's burning stuff. Stop it! And again, he has to touch the visor. Rubbish. And then throughout it all, there's none of the tactician stuff really, and he's not really any good at fighting. And look, I know Scott has had a long and storied history, and used to be more lame and can be a bit of a dick, but there was potential to grow him in the movies and they didn't. But as I'll end up saying with each of these, now they're in the MCU, they could do him better, we'll see. Alright, thanks a lot, bye!